Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Between My Therapist and I. Again, I am joined today by Ben. My name is Lily. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Ben is my intern, and we're going to be talking today about narcissism in the workplace and how a narcissist can literally turn a workplace upside down with the toxic culture that it brings with them. So I'm going to start out by going over just some basic information that we know about narcissists in general, and then we're going to move on to the 7 typical signs of a narcissist, and then in the end we're going to discuss how do you overcome being in a workplace where you are exposed to a narcissist. The main type of work environment that we're going to be focusing on is one where the primary genders are the same, so either mostly women or mostly men. And the reason for that is because if you have a mixed gendered work environment, you're going to actually see different approaches to the narcissistic behavior. So everything that we talk about, if you imagine there being a mixed gender type of workplace, just imagine adding at the very end of the description a sexual component to it. So if there's gaslighting, if there's a mixture of genders in the workplace, that gaslighting would also involve the narcissist trying to gaslight the person who they're trying to attract or who they're trying to manipulate on a more of a romantic basis or sexual basis. So for the purposes of our time and things like that, we're going to focus on mostly same gender type of environment. And then we'll talk about if there are mixed genders on a different podcast, if that's something that people are interested in. So Ben, what have you learned about narcissists in your internship?
So there's actually a wide umbrella of information that I've started to kind of absorb over time, and that there's about 8 types of narcissism that we can see, and they present themselves in kind of different ways and different forms. And being aware of some of the red flags that you have, especially in the workplace, is crucial. So one of the types is overt narcissism. And you'll see some outgoing, arrogant, entitled, overbearing traits to this. And being aware of, different personality assessments that are out there that can help identify someone like an overt narcissist is key, like the Big 5 personality assessment, or even the Myers-Briggs assessment as well, that can help you pinpoint some similarities between the personality and this individual who may or may not be a narcissist.
Now, just a caveat, speaking about diagnosing and assessing and things like that, we have to say this podcast is strictly educational. So we're not actually diagnosing anyone at your job in particular. If you do feel like a certain person at your workplace fits the criteria, then I would recommend you reaching out to your HR department or to your management team, because diagnosing via podcast is not always recommended, because this is a general educational podcast. So please go on, Ben.
Absolutely. And that is key to making sure that there are different types, and you have to leave it up to the professionals to be able to identify it and properly address it and equip you with the tools to get through dealing with these individuals. Another type that I've learned about is covert narcissism. And this is someone who isn't always loud and overbearing. They have a higher likelihood of anxiety, depression, and shame. So they kind of keep this under wraps, the narcissism under wraps, and have a tendency to play the victim. And we're going to talk about this more in the podcast as well, how victimizing themselves is a way for them to kind of get their foot in the door to manipulate. And a third type of narcissism I've noticed was the antagonistic narcissism. And it's a subtype. So there are subtypes to different types of narcissism. And again, this is why it's important to leave it up to the professionals to be able to critically analyze and assess them, and the strategies that can help deal with and handle them in the workplace. So again, HR, like Lily said, is crucial to utilize. They're a resource. We encourage that. And there is a vast umbrella of narcissism. There's also other types such as communal narcissism, which is an interesting type since it is hidden agendas that this type of individual will have. They appear to be presenting themselves as a genuine concern for the well-being of others. But again, that note of having that hidden agenda, they know what they want to do, and they'll try to present anything that's against them as unfair and for the greater good of everyone else around them. And then one of the highest severity levels is malignant narcissism. And this is where you'll see sadism, which is enjoyment of getting pain from others. You'll see aggression when interacting with other people, and it can get physical. Physical altercations are a key one. And there is a sense of paranoia or heightened worry about threats towards them, their character, and their false reality that they've kind of drummed up about themselves and that they stick to, regardless of how credible or valid this reality that they kind of concocted is actually. So that's kind of some of the types of narcissism I've learned about, and I'd like to hand it over to you, Lily, for the foundational elements of kind of the 7 points and takeaway points that we have.
So let's go ahead and get started with one of the biggest things about narcissists that you will notice in almost all narcissists. I think covert feel it, but don't show it as much as the other ones. But certainly the jealousy. So this deep jealousy that narcissists have towards anyone who has a skill or has a just a gift or an ability different or better than the narcissist. A perfect example is, especially if the skill gives you credibility or gives you credit or puts you in the spotlight. A perfect example that I've observed is, let's say that you speak multiple languages, and that ability allows you to form close bonds and relationships with other coworkers. And that ability also allows you to get credit, and it helps you to be recognized because you can do, you not only can do your own job, but you can expand to other avenues, you can translate for other people, etc., etc. The narcissist will find a way to essentially either exploit it, or they will exploit it sometimes, and in other times they'll find a way to use it against you or minimize its value because they cannot stand the idea that you may have something about you that's superior to them in some way. The next one is they don't like to follow the rules. So narcissists in the workplace, you're going to be seeing a person who is more than happy to set the rules. They're more than happy to throw anybody else under the bus who doesn't follow the rules, but they certainly do not like the idea of being the ones who are held accountable and held to the standards of the rules. So if you find that people in your workplace typically try to get away with little things where you ask them like, hey, you've been showing up late all the time. Who's clocking you in? Because you're still getting your hours, and what are you doing? And the person's like, oh yeah, it's okay. I figured out a way to clock in from home. So I can actually leave the house half an hour later and still get to work supposedly on time. And they'll say it to you very proud of themselves, and they'll be laughing like it's no big deal. And you're over here like, that's not right. Like, that's totally inappropriate. And they'll look at you like, that's none of your business. And so they will get confrontational, and then they'll target you as like a potential, like someone who might potentially be a target for them. And I think, let's see, you mentioned that was the antagonistic one falls into that. Yes. And then the malignant narcissist, for sure, they will not appreciate being held accountable for their behavior. They definitely do not appreciate that you pointed out that they did something wrong. So they will target you and start watching you like, you know, did she say something? Did she go and tell her boss? Like, you know, like, am I going to get in trouble? And then they start to plot in their minds how they're going to kind of talk their way out of it and make you look bad, even if you never mention it. The next one is false flattery. So usually the narcissist will try to use false flattery at the beginning to establish a bond, especially with people who are generally agreeable. It'll be something very shallow, something very basic. They don't really go above and beyond too much, since they feel like they're so important that the fact that they even acknowledge your existence is really should be flattery enough. But they'll flatter you as just something very, very just mindless. And then once they feel like they've done enough for you, they've done little favors, they've done little things here and there, then they'll start to kind of sip into your mind, like tell you secrets and talk to you about other people and start kind of poisoning your head. And since you're already susceptible to it because they've initially flattered you and gave you things that now you trust them or you feel like they're good people, they can start to like poison your thoughts and your minds towards others in the workplace. And one of the main things that narcissists like to do in the workplace is they like to divide. They're very divisive. So they will start by like telling this person about someone else. And then they'll go to someone else and they'll say, you know what I heard? I heard that this person really thinks that you're like really shallow. Have you ever heard the way they talk about you? You know, like they'll start like planting seeds of division.
That's a great point, the seeds of division that you're mentioning. And it's almost like they try to cast that net as wide as possible, but all comes back to one person that they're trying to put out. Or it's like a candle with a flame. They want to blow the flame out immediately. And the only justification that they can have is their false reality. So they try to buy credibility with other individuals, and they'll do this by any means necessary. Lying is a big one. They will create something that is so far extreme to build up to. And then it's the smear campaign, quite literally. And it's debilitating to any business. There's no progress that can be made, whether it's a team effort in anything that is in the business world. It's catastrophic to success. Narcissism is something where you can't tell until it's too late a lot of times. And it's catastrophic.
Another thing that you're going to find is number 4. They hate others being in the spotlight. So one of the reasons why it's so catastrophic to the morale of a job, of a workplace, when you have a narcissist among you, is because it's very, very difficult for the individual to receive their due rewards, because the narcissist has spread that influence as far and wide as possible, and almost all the attention is somehow always ending back on them. Whether it's you win an award, but the narcissist fell down the stairs when you're picking up the award, or they tripped. As you were walking up to get the award, they somehow trip on the floor. And all of a sudden, nobody's paying attention to you and to your speech or anything like that. They're all looking at the narcissist. Another way is that person may have cast a wide enough net in this smear campaign that all they have to do is just whisper in the right person's ears how they were the ones who actually came up with the idea that got the award, but you didn't feel, the narcissist did not feel safe actually sharing that information with the manager or HR because the narcissist supposedly was afraid that the other person was going to hate them, or that they were going to retaliate against them. So a big thing that you see from narcissists is this just aversion to watching anyone getting credit or getting a reward or any acknowledgement.
And that's another thing. If someone, let's say they get the presentation and they get an award, a narcissist, they will try to find the smallest iota to insert themselves on. And they will embellish the importance of their participation in your success, that they spin it to be their success. You wouldn't have achieved anything if it wasn't for them. You wouldn't even gotten to the point of receiving an award if it wasn't for their intervention. It's all about them, it's a bizarre way to have that mentality.
The next one is they're extremely uncomfortable with honesty. And as a matter of fact, oftentimes people who are agreeable by nature and honest and kind are specifically targeted by narcissists because of the fact that narcissists do not understand, they do not like the idea of a genuinely kind person. It takes away the light from them. It takes away the breath from them. It takes away the attention from them, because people who are genuinely kind and genuinely agreeable tend to attract others. They tend to attract affection and attention, and the narcissist hates that. And so you're going to find that one of two things is going to happen. Has a target. You will become a target no matter what, but one of two things is going to happen. If you're at a lower tier from the narcissist, then the narcissist will see you as simply a tool. And so they will target you. They will put you in compromising situations, or kind of turn you into someone who is very codependent on them, or who is very trusting of them, so that they can use you and use your kindness at a later date as a weapon, and has an entryway. Or if you're a higher tier, they will find a way to, whether it's gaslighting, a smear campaign, whether it's doing everything possible to make you behave in a way that's unpleasant or that is totally against your nature, so that then they can turn around and say, see, this is exactly who this person actually is. They were lying the entire time. They really aren't as good as they say. They're hypocrites, etc., etc. And that way they can bring you down a notch. Another way that they can do it, if you're in a higher tier position, is they will find a way to get you fired, or manipulate you, or make you do things that you know is not appropriate, but they'll get into your head, make you doubt your decisions, make you doubt the way that you see people around you, make you question people's loyalty. And while they're doing that, they're turning around and talking to other people about you, saying, wow, she's really turned into this horrible person, and she didn't used to be this way. I don't know who she really is anymore. And, you know, she's so violent now, she's so rude, or she's so mean, etc., etc. And so they will use that. In turn, they were telling you that they were counseling you to do the right thing, but in turn, they were actually putting the poison in your mind so that you doubted others and so that you questioned your own people, so that then they can turn that around and say that you have changed. And that they will even go as far as saying, yeah, like, you should see the way she talks to me. So like now the narcissist becomes the victim, and all of a sudden they're getting the empathy of everyone around them, and the narcissist looks like they're the monster. Mm-hmm. The next one is accountability and criticism. Narcissists do not do well with accountability. They do not do well with criticism or any sort of feedback. They will do whatever it takes to have the last word. They will gaslight, they will manipulate, they will flat out lie in front of your face. You can be showing them every fact known to men, all the receipts, and they will say, I didn't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I never heard of that. And you can have all the evidence, but they will still deny. So holding a narcissist accountable basically puts them against the wall, and they will fight back like a beast, like an animal that's being attacked. They will fight back tooth and nail. They're not afraid to use any psychological or even physical tactics necessary to make you feel like you're the one that's wrong and they're the ones that are in the right and they're the ones that are the victims. Okay. The last one is, of course, the God complex. So you might see this in your work as a person who they like to be in charge. They think that they're right about everything. If you try to contradict them or you try to go against them, they might say, oh yeah, no, that's a great idea. Sure. That's no problem. But then the second they turn around, they're out there talking about you. They're saying that you're a bully and that you're bossy and that you wouldn't listen to their ideas. So they think that their ideas are always right. Their way is the best way. They should be in control. They should be the ones in charge. They absolutely hate to feel like they're not in control. They hate the idea of someone else being in charge over them. And so they will obsess over ways to take over control of their environment, the situations around them, and the people around them. Whether it's covertly or overtly or using violence or manipulation, it really doesn't matter. It's whatever works for them. Now, that's it for the 7 tips. I will say 2 main things before we move on to the final part of the podcast. Number 1, narcissists do not understand. The number 1 rule of narcissist, the number 1 thing that we look for a diagnosis is they do not understand empathy. That means they don't feel guilty. That means they don't feel ashamed. That means they don't feel sorry whenever they do what they do. That's the first thing. The second is they know. A narcissist knows what they're doing. You need to know what you're doing to plot, to connive, to lie, to manipulate. You need to know what you're doing. You need to be aware of your behavior, because if you did not have an awareness of what you were doing, you would be getting caught all the time. You would be doing things just thoughtlessly, and you would be getting caught constantly. The truth is, narcissists are they're usually one-trick ponies, so they gotta have, each narcissist has their style, and so they follow that certain style of manipulation. But I will say that it's very well thought out and it's very well planned, and I promise you it's worked many, many, many times before. They've used it many times before, and it's gotten them results many times before. So they know what they're doing. It's been studied. They have studied you. They've studied their environment. They don't feel sorry for it. On the contrary, they think they're doing you a favor. They think they're actually benefiting the person by destroying their lives, because really you should know better. You should know better. You should understand how to be an adult and how to tell when somebody's manipulating you, really. So with that said, now we're going to move on to what to do in the presence of a narcissist.
Absolutely. And those are great points with how methodical a narcissist is. And in the workplace, they have that plan coming in, and you can look into someone's track record in employment. And I'm sure Lily, as a business owner, you got to look at, investigating a potential employee and keeping in mind their personality, which I assume is a big part of the employment process, and how you can kind of see narcissists come in. That's where you can filter them out. Although these types of personalities don't usually show up until later on. Is that something that you'd agree with, or not really?
A narcissist will always be a narcissist. Mm-hmm. You do not see the narcissist coming at the beginning because they're plotting. Mm-hmm. So while the narcissist is planting the seeds, as we were talking about before, what you're seeing is primarily, I used to work with I used to have a patient who was a narcissist, and he used to tell me that I'm just painting the sky whatever color I want that person to see. Like I'm just painting the sky rose color for them, just to get them comfortable with the idea. And then afterwards they'll have to see reality. But once they've seen reality, then I know that it's time to paint the sky rose colors again. Mm-hmm. And so then they fall back into the manipulation. And it's a constant cycle of manipulation and gaslighting and psychological warfare that's happening.
It's almost like mental gymnastics that they kind of try to put you through. And in the workplace, there's a job to get done. People don't want to be focusing on being taken advantage of or even manipulated by a coworker or a superior or a subordinate. However that dynamic plays out, to a narcissism, they always want to be the one in power. And what to do in the presence of a narcissist. I don't know if you have anything to add before I jump to that.
Go ahead.
The presence of a narcissist, it's a disorder. And you can't cure it, you can't fix it. However, treatment can help individuals handle it and be more self-aware, to the point where, we mentioned that they know what they're doing, but the magnitude of their actions and the people that surround them need to be aware too, and how to handle them. So you want to protect yourself if you're in the presence of a narcissist. If you own a business or you're in business endeavors with someone who potentially is one, you have to understand their crafty, manipulative tactics. And as we said before, mentioned, reach out to HR, therapists who are licensed, certified to deal with these types of mental health disorders, and understand what you're dealing with and the arena that you're at play. Then you always want to have clear and consistent boundaries. And I'm sure even with patients, this has to help. And Lily can testify to that with, you have those inset, consistent boundaries, and it may even upset a narcissist, since that's the defensive line and initially stopping their control from wreaking havoc. And that's what you want to avoid. But speak up for yourself. You got to be clear and concise. You do not let them intimidate you. A narcissist is not meant to be feared, since that's something that they're looking for. Once they see that emotional inlet, they're going to take advantage of it and play on it like you are a target that they've always had in their sights. And it's true, they have. They do their research. They're very methodical in how they want to take advantage of others. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Lily?
Nope. I think you definitely nailed it for how to deal with the narcissist.
Awesome. And staying calm, too. I forgot that point. Calm, cool, and collective. And yeah, go ahead.
I would say, remember that if you are confronting someone that you know is a narcissist, or you have a strong suspicion that they're a narcissist, imagine that you have a spotlight on you, and anything and everything you say can be twisted, manipulated, and held against you at some point in time. So think about it that way and handle the situation that way. Whatever message you send to that narcissist, it will be disassembled, it will be twisted, it will be manipulated, and then it will be used against you. So that's why the best techniques and the best tactics are to stonewall the person, meaning avoid conversation altogether, or one-word answers, or just leaving the space where they are. And gathering as much evidence as you need, as possible, covertly, just quietly, just put away, save your emails, save your text messages, save dates and conversations and things like that, because you never know, you might be the next target of the narcissist, especially if they realize that you're starting to catch on their game.
And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, once they realize that you're onto them, that's when it gets to a heightened state and they really get volatile, aggressive, and that's where safety can be a concern, a major concern.
So that would be more of when you're talking about an overt or more of the type of narcissist who would use physical force.
Okay.
However, you're right. The scales go up and the pressure goes up significantly when the narcissist believes that they've been caught, because now the clock is ticking and essentially the narcissist is thinking, okay, I have to attack before this person attacks me. So whatever smear campaign they were trying to set, whatever net they were trying to put out there, that effort has now doubled or tripled, especially if they feel like you can potentially put their plans, because they always have a plan, put their plans in jeopardy in some sort of way. All of a sudden now you're enemy number one. So their whole attention is going to be on you.
Yeah.
They're going to start using everyone around you like pawns to essentially create as much difficulty and has many obstacles for your progress as possible, so that then they can succeed in whatever they want.
And it's almost like they cherry pick information that they want to use to the point. And that's when we say, stay calm, cool, and collective, because they'll use that short emotional response that you have to be like, look, that's what I'm talking about. And then they get their credibility. But if you don't give them that satisfaction, you disarm them. And I like that you mentioned the fact of their behavioral pattern, that it's a one-trick pony. Once you spot that, you have them. They don't have you. And then you can take the necessary action to disengage and get out of their level. You don't have to sink down to their level because they feed off that attention. So I think that's a crucial takeaway to dealing with a narcissist. Absolutely. Remember that they have that one trick and that's it.
So when you're talking about, going back to the narcissist types. So malignant, for example, if you have like either a malignant narcissist or you have the typical antagonistic narcissist, these two types are typically the type that will start with the gaslighting, the honeymoon phase. Then they start to progressively become more and more controlling, more and more antagonistic, until they get to the point where they have either started beating on the person, physically hurting the person, or they've started to create like a sexual harassment type of situation, something where there's a physical component of power in manipulation. Then once the damage is done and that person feels like the satisfaction of that sadist like release of I feel better because I've essentially like put this person in their place, then they start to like go down, and like it's like okay, now I get to start the process all over again. And so that's what you would see in that type of pattern. And they will repeat that over and over and over and over again. Now, if you're talking about a covert narcissist, or you're talking about overt, covert, more of the psychological manipulative type of narcissist, then what you're going to see is they will either favor a certain type of psychological manipulation. So they'll favor gaslighting, or they will favor victimizing, or they will favor things like deflecting, or just using avoidance, things like that. And you will see it in every single conversation. The more the narcissist is confronted, the more they use their trick. So the more they will gaslight, the more they will try to avoid, the more that, and sometimes they'll have like 1 or 2 or 3 of that one trick, which is the emotional psychological manipulation is the trick. I'm going to have psychological manipulation as my trick, and here are my weapons: avoidance, victimizing, and gaslighting. And I use those are the go-tos, and they use it over and over and over. And like, for example, they'll be like, I'm so sorry that this other person, not me, did this to you, and you must have felt so horrible, and now you're here and you feel like I'm responsible because of what they did. I mean, how can that be possible, that you have been hurt so much that you actually feel like I would ever do that to you, that I would ever think of you in this way? Like, you're so traumatized by what this person did to you. They have manipulated you in this horrible way, and now you can't trust even your friend.
It's like a diffusion of responsibility. And they do that smear where it's like negative, negative, negative towards that one person that they target. And then they uplift themselves and glorify it. And it may not be in your face, but it's a subliminal message that they start to weave into the conversation. Yeah. And they'll get you when you're at a vulnerable moment, at any time, emotionally, or just when you don't really have the ability to address it. They slip in and they start weaving this contorted and toxic mindset into your own. And that's where the gaslight comes in. Yep. You can't really tell where that reality is, and they're crafty. But once you're aware and you notice those weapons, like Lily was saying, those 3 weapons that they use for their one trick, the pattern becomes clear. And then you can really nail them before they can start to get their talons sunken into you.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that this gives you some clarity, and that it helps at least some of you to recognize that if you are involved in a workplace where there is a narcissist present, it's not your fault. And this is something that I always have to tell people who are victims of narcissistic abuse. You are not at fault. You are not the one that, you are not silly for being too nice. You are not wrong for trying to go above and beyond for this person, or for believing them when you shouldn't have. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your kindness. There's nothing wrong with your desire to work in a safe and loving environment. Trust that this is a person who is very, very ill and mentally unstable, and put yourself in a position where you have the tools to defend yourself. So reach out to HR, reach out to a trusted manager, keep whatever information you have that may prove helpful for when you have to stand up for yourself, and do not be afraid of them. It doesn't matter what they tell anybody else. It doesn't matter how they present you. At the end of the day, you know your truth and you know what the facts are. And whatever happens, it will come to light. It might not come to light immediately, but it will come to light at some point in time. And you will know that you did the right thing.
Absolutely. Very well said. The disturbed individuals, and protect yourself. That's crucial. Seriously, very powerful in how you put that too. You got to protect yourself. Seriously, that's one of the main things. And get in touch with the experts too that you have. HR, if you got it at your workplace, get in contact with them. And like Lily said, keep the notes, keep emails, texts, anything that they've utilized to try and insert themselves into controlling you. Make sure you have that documented.
So that's it for today. I hope it was helpful. Please leave a comment if you have questions, if you'd like to make suggestions on other topics. And we really appreciate you following us on our podcast. And we suggest that you subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you'd like our videos, go ahead and click the little bell. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you next time.